Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing the new McKinley Dixon album, Magic Alive. Here we have the fifth album from the American rapper, who over the last few years has been slowly but surely building up quite the catalogue of potential future classics, which started in 2021 with the album For My Mama and Anyone Who Looked Like Her, which admittedly is quite rough around the edges compared to what he's been doing since then, but still showed off a lot of what he was capable of, which was then only further built on the following album, Beloved Paradise Jazz, which to this day is still absolutely one of my favourite jazz rap albums of the decade so far. And now this new album, Magic Alive, only further sees him continuing to improve and solidify himself as easily one of the most incredible artists in modern jazz rap. This is by far one of his most conceptual works yet, having many lyrics that consistently touch on themes including death and loss and use a lot of really cool metaphors to do that, and manage to present these themes through using a lot of very unique metaphors. Wash My Hands is the opening track on this album, and is just a very nice, very soft and simple opener. The guitar work, as simple and as quiet as it is still absolutely fantastic, and the lyrics with a lot of themes of death and friendship set the tone for a lot of what the album's going to be about. And the following track, Sugar Water, is just simply a brilliant and very grand jazz rap track that sees McKinley Dixon only further expanding his sound and his style, of course with his absolutely top-notch rapping and just the incredible presence that the brass instruments have for the whole song. The whole atmosphere on this track is so lush, and the way it feels so epic at the same time makes it so unique. You would think that a track like this would really set the bar far too high for the rest of the album, but it really does manage to continue to keep up the pace and still be just as incredible for the whole thing. Crooked Stick then further continues the incredible jazz influences with an almost very kind of big band and jazz band feel. And I also really love the very sarcastic tone of the lyrics on this track, just with the way that it really makes fun of TikTok culture, which I think is a very real criticism of modern society that in a lot of song lyrics doesn't quite get talked about just enough. Recitative then just tones it down a little bit with the use of these incredibly soothing strings, and of course McKinley's rapping is much calmer on this track as well, which I think really is testament to how talented he is not only as a rapper but as a musician, being able to pull off so many incredibly diverse styles in such quick succession. And then I absolutely love the way this track becomes so aggressive towards the end with such an unsuspecting start, and it really does become almost a headbanging moment with the way it just gets you so hyped up. Run 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 Part 2 opens with McKinley just rapping over a very soft but still very suspenseful piano, which eventually, as it builds to the chorus, is one of the most beautiful and lush moments on the whole album, just with how epic the instrumentation is and of course the very heavy jazz influence. And I do also just want to mention the production, which consistently is fantastic on the whole album, but I think that this track in particular shows off some of the absolute best work in that department. The vocals are also an incredible highlight from this track, being so melodic but also having this incredible passion in the delivery. Where Outside Rejoice is one of the jazziest songs on the album, I think, with it leaning much more into that influence than most of the other songs. The use of the saxophone on this track is also incredible, and even though it's very subtle in some moments and isn't present for that much of the song, when it is there it is easily one of my favourite features. Although the saxophone solo towards the end with the echoing vocals in the background is absolutely one of my favourite moments, with it just showing off such a brilliant and unique structure while still leaning into the much more traditional jazz rap sound. I think that this song does also have a particularly good chorus with just how anthemic and epic it can be. All the Loved Ones opens with this really fun and very witty hook that keeps it very lighthearted. And then as the song goes, McKinley's rapping, despite it being so monotonous, I think he actually really makes that style work, with it still sounding absolutely fantastic and really fitting in just with how the rest of the song sounds. I will say that on this track I'm not a huge fan of the much less organic approach to the percussion, with there being a lot of very obviously used drum machines in some moments that make some parts almost sound like a very cheesy 80s track. And I think that the style especially just doesn't really work that well on this song, simply because of how simplistic and organic pretty much everything else is, and then you just have this weird, more electronic drum machine that just doesn't work at all. FFOL is brilliantly jazzy with this really unique big band sort of feel. The very grand chorus is of course amazing, and I love the much more aggressive approach to the rapping, especially during the verses, and I think it just really helps to keep the song so dynamic. Listen Gentle features some very clever lyricism, with the very heavy incorporation of various different metaphors that all involve something to do with money or coins, and I love how it just manages to give this track a very cool and consistent theme in the lyrics. The jazz instrumental is one of the absolute best on the whole album, and also I think features some of McKinley's absolute best ever rapping, with him feeling completely unstoppable for the entire time he's going and just having so much power and so much momentum. And then the title track, more than anything, just feels like riding the high of an absolutely fantastic album now that we're near the end. There are very few specific things I can point to on this song that I particularly love, other than just how consistently fun and catchy it is. And the saxophone as well I will mention to also be one of my favorite aspects of this track. And then Could Have Been Different is just a brilliant ending track, really feeling like it's providing the album with so much closure. And I love how so many of the lyrics on this song really do just feel like odes to his whole discography, which now with the release of this album does just keep getting better as it goes. And in fact, throughout a lot of this album, there are many various different references to previous songs and albums of his. And I do love how that really does make this album feel like more than just an album, and more like a much smaller part of a much bigger piece of art. But despite that, it still does work incredibly well just as an album in its own right, being, I think, easily McKinley Dixon's strongest so far, having some of the best rapping, best lyricism, and so much of the jazz influence is consistently so fantastic, with there being so many moments being so fun and catchy, but also parts that are much more mellow and just keep this album so dynamic. And despite how short this album is, it still manages to remain so interesting and so consistently dynamic. And so I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.